All right, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Brain. Over the past few hours, a discussion has been building across the XRP community that has genuinely surprised many experienced investors. What makes this conversation different is that the name Bank of America has suddenly begun appearing alongside XRP and the future of financial infrastructure. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this is not simply another social media rumor or another short-lived price prediction circulating online. Instead, the discussion has shifted towards something far more significant. Institutions, digital payments, stablecoins, tokenization, and the infrastructure that could eventually move trillions of dollars across the global financial system. But wait, that isn't even the biggest development. The real question is this. While most of the market has remained obsessed with Bitcoin's short-term price movements, could some of the world's largest financial institutions already be preparing for the next phase of blockchain infrastructure behind the scenes? And if that is happening, are retail investors still watching charts while institutions are quietly positioning themselves around technology that could support the future of finance? Stay with me until the end, because several institutional signals have started appearing that many investors may have completely overlooked. If these signals continue developing, their impact may extend far beyond XRP and influence the wider digital asset market. If we honestly examine every major crypto cycle, one pattern repeats itself again and again. Retail investors usually chase whichever asset has already rallied. Institutions, however, spend their time analyzing infrastructure capable of supporting financial markets over the next decade. That difference in perspective is exactly why XRP has returned to the center of so many conversations. Today, most market participants remain focused almost entirely on price. They ask whether Bitcoin will reach another all-time high, how far XRP could potentially move, or when the next breakout may begin. Institutions ask completely different questions. Which network can process global settlements? Which blockchain can support tokenized assets? Which infrastructure can deliver enterprise-grade liquidity? Which ecosystem can operate under regulatory oversight? And perhaps most importantly, which platform can earn long-term institutional trust? This is where the narrative begins to change. In traditional finance, speed certainly matters. However, trust, compliance, operational resilience, and regulatory certainty matter even more. Banks are not simply searching for the fastest blockchain. They evaluate legal frameworks, scalability, security, liquidity, and whether a platform can realistically integrate into existing financial systems without creating unnecessary operational risk. That is precisely why many analysts have started viewing Ripple and the XRP ecosystem through a completely different lens. However, the real signal may actually be something else entirely. Institutional conversations are gradually moving away from speculation and towards infrastructure. Stablecoins continue expanding. Tokenized assets continue growing. Enterprise payment providers are exploring blockchain integration more seriously than ever before. Cross-border payment efficiency has become an increasingly important objective. As a result, liquidity infrastructure is becoming significantly more valuable than many investors currently realize. According to several market observers, the biggest winner of the next financial era may not necessarily be the asset with the largest market capitalization. Instead, it could be the infrastructure capable of moving real-world value quickly, securely, and efficiently across multiple jurisdictions. That is one of the reasons XRP has returned to the spotlight. But the story certainly doesn't end there. History consistently demonstrates that major financial transitions rarely begin with dramatic headlines. They usually begin quietly. Infrastructure is developed first. Institutions begin integrating those systems. Liquidity gradually increases. Regulatory frameworks mature. Only then does the broader market fully recognize what has been taking place behind the scenes. This explains why experienced investors are paying less attention to short-term price fluctuations and more attention to adoption metrics, institutional participation, stablecoin growth, tokenization, and enterprise blockchain development. At the same time, discussions surrounding Bank of America, institutional finance, and XRP continue appearing together more frequently. This does not automatically mean that every discussion represents a confirmed partnership or immediate implementation. However, Whenever major financial institutions continue evaluating blockchain infrastructure, markets naturally begin analyzing where that momentum could eventually lead. And perhaps that is the biggest shift taking place today. The conversation is no longer centered purely around cryptocurrency. It is increasingly centered around financial infrastructure. There is a significant difference. Speculation creates temporary excitement. Infrastructure creates long-term value. That distinction could become extremely important over the coming years. Another factor adding fuel to the discussion is the rapid expansion of stablecoins. Many industry analysts believe the stablecoin market could grow dramatically during the coming years as financial institutions seek faster and more efficient settlement mechanisms. If that projection proves accurate, demand for reliable blockchain infrastructure may increase alongside it. At the same time, tokenization continues gaining momentum. Governments, banks, and financial firms are increasingly exploring how traditional financial assets could eventually move on blockchain networks. Whether those assets include government bonds, money market instruments, corporate securities, or cross-border payment rails, the conversation is no longer theoretical. It is gradually becoming practical. And this is exactly why infrastructure matters more than ever. Wait, because here's where things become even more interesting. Many retail investors still evaluate projects based primarily on short-term price action. Institutions rarely do. Their investment decisions often revolve around long-term utility, operational efficiency, and strategic positioning. That difference in thinking explains why infrastructure stories frequently develop long before price reflects them. Financial history has demonstrated this repeatedly. Technology develops first, institutions adopt second. Markets recognize the opportunity later. Only then does widespread attention arrive. Whether XRP ultimately becomes one of the dominant settlement assets of the future remains uncertain, and nobody can honestly guarantee that outcome. However, one fact is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The quality of the conversation surrounding XRP has changed. Today, analysts are discussing compliance. They are discussing tokenization. They are discussing liquidity. They are discussing enterprise adoption. They are discussing blockchain infrastructure. Those conversations are fundamentally different from the speculation-driven narratives seen during previous market cycles, and perhaps that is the strongest signal of all. So the biggest question every investor should now consider is remarkably simple. Is the market still focused almost entirely on price, or has a much larger financial transition already begun quietly in the background? If the second possibility proves correct, today's infrastructure developments could easily become tomorrow's biggest headlines. That is exactly why institutional conversations surrounding XRP continue gathering momentum. Whether every expectation ultimately becomes reality or not, the market is clearly paying closer attention to blockchain infrastructure than ever before. And that alone makes this one of the most important narratives to watch throughout the coming months. Outro. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to Crypto Brain, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest institutional developments shaping the future of digital assets. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the market is still underestimating XRP's long-term infrastructure story, or do you think institutions are already positioning themselves ahead of the next major phase? I'd genuinely love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for watching. It is always an honor to have you here. Until next time, stay informed, stay disciplined, and I'll see you in the next video.